my father's father died when my father was 16, and his mother was left with 6 children, and dad had to leave his job and bring them up.
6
Died
children?
having a tooth out. Got poisoned because they didn't have all the antiseptics in those days. You know, I remember my father getting agitated because of his business, and he said, I'm sure there's going to be a war, and I've got to think, if there is, you know, what I've got to do with my business, because he said there won't most probably be what a lot of architects wanted. You know, he was worried about that, but he said a lot of building most probably wouldn't go on. And I remember him coming home a bit distressed, but the whole time, I think you'll ask most of the people, the whole time we thought it won't happen. Chamberlain will stop it, you know, say we can't possibly have it. It was a shock, I think, to all of us when it was, because you always thought this country, whoever it is, would stop the war, you know, sign something and stop it. So I do remember the broadcast. I well remember that broadcast, and I well remember that after he came off the radio, and within 10 minutes the air raid siren went, and that was a shock because nobody had anything built. Some people built shelters beforehand, and I always remember standing there, all of us frozen. What do we do? What do we do? The air raids. That was a shock, but it was.
You were just you just stood still. You just didn't want you. You all stood there frozen.
Well, we did. You know, where should we go? You know, what do we have to do? Because they talked about these Anderson shelters, you know, in the council houses. They did build those, so we knew something might happen, but of course we didn't. And it was a false alarm. They gave it over the radio after about half an hour. They had to try them out. So we all sort of relaxed, but then it did make my father think then. He said, I'm going to build a shelter at the side of the house, had one built, and he had a lovely shelter built at the side, a concrete one, you know, it wasn't one underground. It was this level, but it had all sorts of things inside it to stop the force of the bomb, you know, very well built, steel and all that. And we had beds in there, so that we could go through if there was. I mean, we all had to sleep in the same little room, but I mean, we could. It wasn't like going underground where they went. Or I mean, the thousands went into the tube stations at night, didn't they? But luckily, we were very fortunate that we had that. I remember that.
And you had to use it.
Pardon?
And you had to use it.
Oh, we used it sometime every night, till I went in the WWII. And Molly and what's it? I mean, that's why when I went back about that, knowing that bombs was coming, I thought I've got to tell them somehow, because if we were unlucky enough to be in the house, you know, we would have been perhaps killed again, you know, so that's why I had to tell them. But no, and then I don't, after that, I know Molly and I you were very frightened when you travelled. You know, like we had to go up to London for our jobs in the old steam trains, and you never knew whether you'll get there safely, whether it'd be bombed, you know, in the tunnels. You know, they had all the tunnels then, and we were always very, very nervous about going up to London in the steam train, and everybody was. You know, you could see they were sitting there hoping we'd get to our destination. But that I think, to me, was one of the worst, was travelling to London every day.
Just in case a bomb would drop precisely at that moment.
Well, it could have been dropped on Liverpool Street Station, where we went to. I mean, that's what they were bombing, wasn't it? And, you know, before you got into Liverpool Street Station in the steam train, there were tunnels, you know, black, and we were always terrified that one might fall on that tunnel, you know, before we got out.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the thing I remember more than anything, was dreading going on the steam train to London.
And rations must have been really, you know, food and drink and...
Well, I thought it was very good. You didn't miss the things like that you would now. I mean, you didn't have so many luxuries, I suppose, in those days as you do, you know, if you think now what you can get. But my mother was super. I always remember a funny thing that happened. to talk about rationing. I went to work one day, to the registrar, and this man came in to get married with this woman. Funny man. And of course we were always witnesses. These that wanted to get secretly married, we were their witnesses as long as they had a witness. So I was a witness to ever so many. And after this man had got married, I had a friend that helped me. He gave us both a parcel. And he says, this is a little present for you, but don't open it until you get home. My friend said, no, we're not a bomb. And anyway, I got home and I opened this. And my mother was ecstatic. I've never known her. She looked at it and she jumped for joy. And I thought, whatever is it? A pound of sausages. He was a butcher. And that pound of sausages, Mother said it was like gold dust. And she made at least 3 meals out of that pound of sausages. And that's how it got people, the rationing, just like that. She couldn't believe it. And then 6 weeks later we had the police looking up our records and he was a bigamist. The best time of my life was when I joined the WWII. The whole time of my life, if you ask me what I enjoyed most, it was joining the WWII, in spite of, the difficulties. I loved it. A horrible smell down there, and that was all I used to say, wonder what old Churchill was smoking tonight. You see, that's how this all came about, because we were still laughing about it when we went out, and that's when they heard me.
Well, that's when Churchill heard you himself.
Well, it was his bodyguard. And he got me for insulting the Prime Minister. So I said, well, what did I say? He said, you called him old Churchill. And I said, well, I'm a Yorkshire person. We call everyone old, but they didn't take any notice of it.
That's funny, because do you remember meeting, did you meet Churchill?
He, as I said in there, we saw him a lot. But we had to stand to attention. He never looked at us, just walked straight through. But if he was coming when we were going down there, you always had to stand to attention, not carry on walking, let him through.
And you got into trouble because of that moment when his guard overheard you.
Yeah.
And what was your punishment?
Pardon?
What was your punishment?
Well, I had no leave, no nothing. Directly I'd finished my job. I had to go down to the kitchen and peel potatoes for the next day, for a month.
For a month?
Yeah. I wasn't allowed out. I had to come off duty, go and wash, put an overall on and go down to the kitchen and peel potatoes. And I said, but your children, so I wouldn't have done it. The girls. I said, you jolly well would. You would have been put on a court-martial if you didn't. Oh yes, that was, the only time I didn't have to do it was when we came off at 10 at night. When we did 2 till 10, you see, and 8 till 2. Well, when it was 8 till 2, I had to come straight off and peel potatoes till 6 o'clock, all ready for the next day. And I wasn't allowed down to the mess or anything. Had to go to my room. We almost knew that it was coming because we were getting so many signals through, but you couldn't say anything. And as I say, we knew it was coming, and when it did, we went out and celebrated. And I had to go back on duty that evening, but we went, as I said in here, to Windsor, and we didn't get any leave though. We couldn't go and celebrate, go home straight away. We still had to work quite hard because there were so many signals coming in, and there were still signals coming from abroad, you see, where the war was still, I wasn't demobbed for a year, nearly 2 years after the war. I still had to stay in the WWII because there was still the war going on in India. So Churchill was still getting the messages back, what was, see, so really the war wasn't over until it was declared over in India. A lot of people it was for, of course. I mean, all the English people that were air raid wardens and all that sort of thing, but not where we worked because it was still going on.
And you worked underground?
Oh, yeah. masses, areas where it says here, areas so far underground. Oh, foul, absolutely foul. And his rooms were along there, see, because he had to be, although he had the cabinet rooms further up,
Churchill.
where he actually slept and that was right underground, you see, in case it was bombed. I don't think anyone... Well, I think we might have been buried, but there were a lot of entrances. It was very clever. But it was a long way on it. You know, that's why I came to Medmenham, because after I'd been there 2.5 years, they said we had to go out to the country, you know, be posted out because of our lungs. Because that's why I went to Medmenham. And I mean, really, truly, when you think of all the men I met, I never liked any of them.
Really?
No,
Not properly?
No. No, it's not like that. Yeah. Isn't funny?
It's good that you still, you know, gave yourself permission to at least, you know, entertain yourself.
Well, it's the same with him. I mean, he had waffenette that were posted out there. He could have met anybody there. I mean, he was with girls like I was with men. He wasn't all men, you see. But he said he never fancied them. He sent me a photograph once or twice with his arms round a couple of girls.